So we need to figure out how much sunlight our focus plants are going to need in order to grow and really thrive. We're going to talk through just a couple of terms that you're going to find fairly commonly in most gardening materials that are going to describe how much sunlight you actually need. And those three terms are shade, partial sun / partial shade, it means absolutely the same thing, and full sun. And then whether or not you grow inside or outside, the definition might change just a little bit. So let's start with outside growers. Outside growers need limited to no sun. That is going to be places like under eaves, underneath the base of larger plants, shrubs, or trees. Places that just are never going to get direct sunlight, or just a little bit for a short period of time each day. Partial sun, partial shade? Partial sun, partial shade, that's hard to say, really means 3 to 6 hours of sunlight. And then full sun means a minimum of 6 hours of sun. I say minimum because if you are going to decide to grow fruits, vegetables, big flowers, it really means 8 to 12 hours of sunlight. Now, if you're growing inside, the definition just adjusts a little bit. So if you're inside, we say indirect light or shade or indirect light when we're talking about shaded or partial shaded plants. And then instead of full sun, we're going to call it direct sun. And I put a little asterisk here because I wanted to remind you that direct sun and full sun are not the same thing, and we shouldn't have the same expectations of growth. Direct sun is coming through a window pane, and that window pane is going to be filtering some of the power of the sun's rays, about 50% of it actually. And so while plants might have the same amount of hours in sunlight, both inside and outside, your outside plants are going to get vastly bigger and produce more because they're getting the full gift of the sun's light, not just what's filtered through a window. I don't want that to stop you from growing inside, just to sort of adjust your expectations a little bit. So a great example revolves around the pea video that I just did. So if you haven't watched that yet, link is down below in the description. I, this year, decided to experiment with growing peas inside. And so the majority of my peas are all planted outside. In fact, just beyond this board, there is a window and my peas are right outside that. And then I also decided to plant a couple of peas in a small terracotta pot that I'm keeping in my windowsill. Both are going to grow, but I expect that the indoor pea plant is really going to produce, but it's going to be smaller in stature than what I'm producing outside. So some examples of all of this, on the shaded side, some common examples are going to be your hostas, African violets, coral bells. They love the shade, especially hostas. And man, I tell you, if you have never grown a hosta and you are looking for something that is going to give you beauty and confidence, get a hosta. They're amazing. You can't kill hostas, I don't think. And they grow big and beautiful, and then when they get super big, you can split them. Now you have 2 hostas. Eventually you'll have so many, you'll be giving them away, and nobody's going to want your hostas because you have so many. So that's just a little aside from me to you. Partial sun, partial shade is going to be things like lettuce, chard and spinach. Petunia seeds are great for sun and partial shade. Impatiens are another good one. Beets do well in partial sun. And then I'm going to put herbs kind of right in the partial sun to full sun range, and we'll talk about that towards the end. And then finally, examples of the full sun. This is going to be your big fruits and vegetables. This is sunflowers and sweet corn and tomatoes and peppers. Big flowers, your daisies, roses, things like that. Full sun. Okay, so now how do you know what kind of sun your particular focus plant needs? Okay, so let's talk about that next. So let's say your focus plant is tomatoes and you've decided to use plant starts instead of growing from seed. This is actually a tag from a plant start that I purchased last year, and I started all of my tomatoes last year from starts. This year I'm going to be doing it from seeds, but last year I did it all from starts. So you go to your nursery and you look around all the plants, and every single plant is going to have a little tag stuck in the soil. You're going to pull that back, and that tag is going to tell you everything you need to know about how to grow that particular plant. And right down here, you see a little symbol of a sun, and it says full sun. If that tag had a slash through it and maybe also included a little picture of a cloud, that would mean partial sun, partial shade. So you're going to know everything you need right from the tag that is on the start that you buy. If you are growing from seeds, here's a little packet that I bought at a store. These are peppers. If I flip my seed packet over, it's got all the information, again, about how I need to grow that particular seed. And this also has a little symbol right up in the corner. I almost ripped it off. But that also says full sun. That's going to tell you how much sun something needs. Now, quick note about seed packets. You can tell when it's from a store versus from a seed grower by how it looks. Something in a store is always going to have big, bright pictures, and it's going to have a lot more information. This is an example of a seed packet that I get from a seed vendor, and it has almost nothing on it, super plain. This is not telling you that you need full sun to grow tomatoes. I think that's simply just because they assume that if you're at the point where you are buying your seeds from seed vendors and not just directly from a retail store, that you probably already know that that tomato needs full sun. But just know that that's how you can find them on your commercial seed packets, and if you don't have a little symbol, you may just need to do a Google instead. Okay, so a note about herbs. Basil is a fantastic example. If you look on the back of the basil packet, okay, this is actually like a horrible example because this one doesn't tell me either. I might have ripped it off. I probably ripped it off across the top, but basil is one that would tell you it needs full sun. And it does. But if it's hot and that sun is really hot and intense, your basil's gonna sunburn. It doesn't really like things hot, 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 hot. So while a lot of herbs are gonna say they need full sun, I actually am gonna put them right in the center. Especially as we consider climate change and how much hotter our summers are getting, and the intensity of the sun is growing. When you're growing your herbs, find a place that is going to allow some cool air blowing through or some partial shade, because this little basil is not going to want to sit outside for 12 hours a day in 90-degree heat. So if I want to come outside and figure out in the springtime where the sun is going to shine and lay shadow in my yard, it's pretty easy. I just gotta walk outside. I gotta find a sunny day. I gotta come out here in the morning like I am now. I'm gonna come out again at noon, and I'm gonna come out again towards the evening, towards sunset, and I'm just gonna look at my yard. I'm gonna look at where growing spaces appear to be, and I'm gonna sort of just look at how long the sun stays in those growing spaces. This, however, becomes a lot trickier if you live in some of the upper zones where the sun position throughout spring, summer, fall can change drastically. So personally, I've had a number of seasons now to really pay attention to how the sun changes across my property and how the shadows move, and that tells me where and when I need to place my vegetables. Okay, so this is the front portion of my yard. It is sunny this morning. As you can see, the sun is coming from behind me, and my front yard is immediately in full sun, as is my driveway. Because it's still spring, however, and because I have a delightful neighbor, you can see that as I move up the driveway, some of the driveway is going to be in sun, some of it here is heavily shaded. So at this time of year, I'm not really using my side garage space much at all because it's just completely in shade. If I move into my backyard, I've got more shade. My patio is still completely in shade because of course my house is in the way. If I move into the back corner, you can see that that far back corner is the very first spot in the back that's going to start to see sun. Get out my little crafty model and I'm going to show you how this can change going forward. If you live in some of the upper zones like I do, you know that your sun is going to shift a fair amount over the course of your growing season. And if you haven't sort of plotted how the sun falls in your yard before, and you don't want to have to wait a whole nother summer to do it, let's get a little arts and craftsy. I mean, nothing but high production value on this channel, folks. So, all right, so I already know that my spring sun comes up low in the sky, shades mostly the front side of my house. That's why my cool weather vegetables, my peas, my carrots, my radishes, all of those end up going along the side of my house because they get beautiful, gentle sun. And then as soon as the weather gets too hot, whoop, they're put into shadow. So the midsummer sun is still coming up in the front, almost completely center with my house. And it's spending a lot more time in the air. And so even here at about noon, I'm starting to get just a little bit of shadow here from the roof line, but my front yards are in full sun. They are going to get at least 6 hours of sunlight up here in the front. Then, as the sun progresses through early afternoon, mid-afternoon, you start to see a point of shadow coming from my roof line, and eventually it is going to shade out my entire front yard. So I know that things grow extremely well on this side, and I know they grow fairly well on the front half of this side, but I know that that shade is going to prohibit some things from growing over here. Come across on the midday sun, we get to the back patio in the backyard. This is now the time of glory for the backyard because from about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon through the end of the day, everything is in full sun. This is where my peppers go. This is where the sweet corn goes. This is where the sunflower goes. Tomatoes, everything that requires full sun, look it up. As we move forward towards the end of the day though, my backyard does start to shade, and that's because of the fence. And that shade is also going to deepen as my sunflowers grow and create even more shade in that backyard. Finally, at the very peak of summer, the sun is all the way over on this side of my house, and it almost completely shades the side of my driveway right from the start. And you can start seeing shadows grow from the side fence and getting really deep late afternoon sunset. So at that time of summer, everybody's starting to get a break from the shade and everybody's starting to slow down and producing. So then the sun, of course, is going to keep moving across the sky as we go into fall, and fall is going to start looking a lot more like spring. And all of a sudden, I get that nice gentle sun along my driveway again, and I can start producing cold weather crops. So this is not fancy, kids. And you may not have to go through all of this effort, right? It's really just a demonstration to show you that there are other ways than just standing outside to figure out where your growing spaces are going to get the most sunlight. You can do this for balconies. You can do this for small landing spaces and patios. Just grab yourself a flashlight and a couple of soup cans and put them together and just start picturing where you think your growing spaces are going to get the most sunlight and matching that up to your focus plants and what they need. All right, folks, that's it for me today. I hope you found this helpful. You should be able to figure out how much sunlight your focus plants are going to need, and now you've got a couple of tips on how to figure out where the sun is going to shine on your growing spaces. If you found this helpful, please go ahead and give me a like. I would really appreciate it. If you had some experience or some struggles finding the sun in your own growing spaces, let's talk about it. Feel free to comment below. And of course, if you want to come along on this journey with me, go ahead and hit that red subscribe button with notifications, and I'm going to see you on the next one. Love you guys. Bye.